That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Jungle Cruise, the ninth film directed by Jaume Collet-Serra, which will be released by Disney on July 30th, 2021.
Jaume?
Jaume.
What?
I believe is how you say his name. You've seen quite a few of his films. He's done 4 films with Liam Neeson, including Run All Night, and The Commuter, and Unknown, and Nonstop, the one on that plane. I think Collet-Serra's best film, in my opinion, was Orphan. He also directed The Shallows with Blake Lively.
Oh, yes.
He's got a Shazam spin-off, Black Adam, coming out as well.
Okay.
And a very busy director. So this is kind of a little bit outside of his wheelhouse comparatively.
Well, good for him for pushing himself.
And notably, the script was written by Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, who are directors in their own right, who did I Love You, Philip Morris with Jim Carrey, Crazy Stupid Love, Focus, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. So also a little bit outside of what I'd expect from them as well.
Well, I feel like I should start off by saying this type of film is probably not for me. I think it's intended for like family viewing.
Sure, Disney, yeah.
Fun for the entire family. A range of themes and comedic topics that could apply to adults maybe, but I don't know. It feels very neutered and so I don't want to say like...
It isn't without some positives, but yes, it's a bit of a mess of a film, but then it also is based on a ride.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about first. A lot of these stories that are based on like this thing that's popular, that's just like a little fleck of something, and then to extrapolate that into like a story, and then in the case of Jungle Cruise, really have the nerve to make it complicated.
The way you sound that made it sound like cancer.
Oh, wow. Films like this might be considered cancer. I don't know. It just seems so easy. Like,
I agree. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, or I've never seen The Haunted Mansion.
So, I remember riding the Jungle Cruise ride at Disneyland when I was a kid, like 30 plus years ago. So I don't know that the nostalgia was really enough to make me interested. I do like Dwayne Johnson.
Sure.
And I've grown to like Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
And their charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent are the best part of the film.
I agree.
Okay. But the story is complicated, and I'm going to try, but you're going to have to jump in like halfway through. But basically, it's set in like the early 1900s.
It's set in 1916.
Yeah, that's early.
Yeah, okay.
In South America.
London and South America. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Emily Blunt plays a character named Lily.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. She's a botanist. Her, along with her brother MacGregor.
I keep wanting to say MacGruber.
MacGruber. Who's playing MacGregor?
Jack Whitehall.
They are trying to find something called, I keep calling it the Tears of a Clown, but it's Tears of the Moon, which is like this tree.
Yeah, the tree, a blooming tree.
That's supposed to heal.
A single petal from the tree could cure any illness, we're told in the exposition in the beginning.
So the opening of the film is sort of explaining like the origins of this thing. Okay. Then we cut to Dwayne Johnson playing a character named Frank, and he runs like a jungle cruise on a boat.
Frank Wolff.
And it's that opening when we meet Frank that is very similar to the ride that was at Disneyland. So going down the river and all of these sort of fake gags and like local people like shooting arrows at the boat, and Frank is like a con man. So he's basically trying to stage these events to get people to feel like they got their money's worth on this ride. Okay. So Frank's kind of a crook on this river doing these cruises. Lily and MacGregor show up because they have a map and they want to find these Tears of a Clown, and they're looking for a person with a boat who can take them to this region.
Because she has with her the key to the Tears of the Moon in a sacred arrowhead that is also part of this legend.
That she's wearing as a necklace.
Yes.
This shit is so complicated. So basically... Oh, go ahead.
That she also nabbed in the nick of time at the beginning of the film because an imperialist German, Prince Joachim, played by Jesse Plemons, is also on the hunt for the same exact thing.
So complicated. Okay. What makes this more complicated is the bulk of the film is when it starts with the Lily, MacGregor, and Frank going on their journey and all of the obstacles they face. But we find out that those obstacles are set up by Frank as a way to sort of like con Lily because he wants to find the tears of a clown. So he's trying to get her to get scared and run away. But each time she realizes he's just like playing her basically.
Including through the use of a heavily CGI'd large cat named Proxima.
Which we can get in. Well, I feel like a lot of the CGI'd animals they looked fake.
Yeah.
The snakes in the jungle, the cat especially. But anyway, this is where it gets cloudy for me because it becomes more complicated when we find out Frank, Dwayne Johnson's character, has been alive for 400 years. He's been cursed. He can't leave the river. So he's just been spending centuries going up and down the river. And then we get backstory to, who's Versace Man?
Édgar Ramírez.
Édgar Ramírez.
He's a conquistador named Aguirre, like Herzog.
That character and Frank have history. They were both searching for Tears of a Clown back in the day. And there was some issues because someone got sick and then they got cursed because they didn't want to do something.
Sure.
They being Lily, Frank, and MacGregor, make it to wherever this magical plant is. Tree. But there's another obstacle saying that like only one of them can have a leaf from it, and
Jesse Plemons is the obstacle, yeah.
And then finish.
Well, I don't know if it's worth really going into detail, but it comes down to there's one pet. The tree only blooms beneath the light of this moon shining through this orifice in this rock, and just as the conquistador who've been reawakened by Jesse Plemons because he knows they will be able to find Dwayne Johnson. Emily Blunt is racing against the light of the moon because as it moves, all the blooms die. She gets the very last bloom, etc., makes a sacrifice. Rather than bring it back, she gives it to Dwayne Johnson's character, who she's fallen in love with because he's turned into a stone. There's some more details involved in that, not worth going into, but he awakens and the tree blooms again, and they return to London in 1916, where she is able to use her brother to demean the chauvinistic patriarchal association that was denying her entry in the first place at the scientific community, and then she's teaching him driving lessons at the end.
Okay, well, this was very unsatisfying.
Well, the film is unsatisfying, but...
And there's so much more to it. Like,
what was that? Not an apt synopsis?
No, but it's not satisfying because there's so much happening, and it just seems like we have two bad guys essentially, right? Because you have the German character,
yes.
Then you have Versace Man, then Dwayne Johnson. We should explain why So the German man wants it because he can have power from it. Emily Blunt's character is a scientist, so she wants to do good with it. Frank, Dwayne Johnson's character, wants it because he can eliminate this curse.
And die, basically.
And die. He wants to die and not be stuck on the river. So, I didn't understand why we need two bad guys. Oh, gosh.
There's so much going on, because then you also have Paul Giamatti.
That's right.
As Nilo.
And what is he doing?
He's basically Frank's competition for the tour boating. Also completely unnecessary. Then you have Veronica Falcón, who I thought was kind of interesting as the leader of this tribe.
The tribe. So one of the gags Frank pulls on Lily is he organizes like this entire tribe of like indigenous people to attack the boat and capture Lily and MacGregor in hopes that they will be scared, stay back, give Frank the map and the key, and he can go get what he needs. That was so elaborate. So now it's like...
It's trying very hard to distance itself from being a theme park ride film, but it's so overzealous with all of these details that it's really stops the narrative in its tracks several times, because none of these things are very interesting.
No, it was very hard to sit through. It's over 2 hours.
Because because I kept wanting it to be like Indiana Jones, which I think Blunt's character is very much modeled after kind of Dr. Jones. In that it has these blatant historical references, like Jesse Plemons being an imperialist German. Because remember, it's London 1916, as the film tells us, we're 2 years into the Great War, but of course at the end of World War I is when Germany stopped being a monarchy and became a democracy. So those are all like interesting things that can be teased out. Instead, like Plemons is having to do this kind of prototype Nazi thing, which, we're not quite in that period yet. Based on his performance, not his wardrobe. But there's so many elements that are just directly riffing on Spielberg. Like early on when Emily Blunt steals the arrowhead, she's nailing something that's in unison with somebody making loud noises, cleaning up an artifact, which is just like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where X marks the spot in that library and he's pounding open the marble on the floor. Anyhow, those were distracting me.
Well, yeah, because it feels derivative. I thought it also was. I didn't enjoy that Robert Downey Jr. Was it Dr. Dolittle?
Yeah, that was terrible.
This film felt like that combined with like Anaconda, except not as campy, trashy fun as Anaconda. But then it's like supposed to be for kids, but then
you can see how they are making some kind of homage in some points to classic Hollywood, like the African Queen, even. Even with Proxima the Cat, I kept thinking they were trying to do kind of a bringing up baby vibe with, because MacGregor is very scared of him. Let's go into that character in a minute. Or even The Leech Woman, which is a favorite B film of mine, African Expedition.
Okay, so what did I like? The chemistry between Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. Well, even individually, they have a lot of screen presence, which I enjoyed. And I said at the end that I think there's about 30 minutes worth of the film that I found enjoyable.
Sure.
Out of the 125 or whatever minutes. There are about 30, and it's mainly them that work. Then the MacGregor character. So I didn't know that there was like a gay character in this movie until you said it. So MacGregor is Emily Blunt's brother. Her character's brother. And he is a fancy gentleman, literally, and he's also homosexual. And the scene where he sort of reveals that is to Frank, Dwayne Johnson's character. And I thought, it might be, I don't know how I feel about it. I felt like it was unnecessary. Because there's like a coming out scene. It was lovely, and Frank's response to MacGregor is lovely. And, he's not treated poorly because of it. So that felt nice. It also felt unnecessary.
It also felt like baby steps. Like, we're testing the waters. There's an openly gay character, unlike all the flack Disney got for having, the coded gay character in Beauty and the Beast with Josh Gad. But
he does have some funny moments, like when MacGregor first brings his luggage onto the boat. He has, like, trunks and like Louis Vuitton trunks upon trunks upon trunks, and there's too much. So Frank is telling him, like, this is too heavy, we have to get rid of it. So they're throwing shit out, and they're doing it expeditiously because bad people are about to attack the boat. And MacGregor's response to that I thought was funny. So
yeah, but it's also funny how he's become kind of a damsel in distress character. Like, I kept thinking he's kind of like Kate Capshaw in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, just more or less useless, but there for a specific purpose that we reference every now and then, and not opposed to physical violence, because they do give him a few punching scenes.
More things I didn't care for. Well, and I can't really blame the movie. The screener you received didn't have subtitles. So that was complicated because several characters, including Versace, he is speaking Spanish and also Portuguese, I believe. And like quite a bit of dialogue is in a language other than English, and there were no subtitles.
Yeah, that was
frustrating. Also, the music.
James Newton Howard, who's a very well-known composer, I thought they were again trying to ape that kind of Spielberg vibe, but I really didn't like the score.
Lastly, since people like to hear me talk about how people look, Emily Blunt's been touched by an angel, and there are many scenes when she's trying to like look sad or cry that were very awkward.
Well, she's a porcelain beauty.
So I hope she lets go of
Let's go of it.
the botulism.
Another film, just because I have it in my notes that kept coming up, was The Lost City of Z, James Gray directed with Charlie Hunnam and Robert Pattinson, among many others. That is definitely worth watching, especially in the scenes where MacGregor is having to address the scientific community, you know, hopefully to advance funds to go on this expedition. It's... Dwayne Johnson's character is supposed to be involved with the Conquistador because he was his cartographer. So he's the one that wrote the map that Emily Blunt's father had that gave to her. Anyhow, there's a lot going on, but all for naught, as they say, and it just ultimately isn't that interesting.
No, but I wouldn't blame a family and their like adolescent children going to see this, because I mean it does feel pretty safe.
It is.
But I wasn't into it. What would you give this film?
2 out of 5.
I would give it 2 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Bye.
Bye.